Hutchinson, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coghill? Absent. Mr. Gambiani?
Here.
Mr. Matheson? Absent. Mr. Paulson?
Here.
Mrs. Swanson?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mrs. Lindenhar?
Here. All right, now you need a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purposes of personnel. Moved by Mr. Roman, seconded by Mrs. Swanson. Mrs. Hutchinson, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindenhar?
Yes, we are adjourned to closed session.
If Jim and Jermaine, we'll try to catch up there, we'll be in the office. Okay?
Mrs. Swanson? Seconded by Mr. Roman. Mrs. Hutchinson, will you call the roll, please?
Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Roman? Mrs. Coghill?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Mrs. Paulson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindenhar?
Yes. Mrs. Stoll, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have communication from the whole school, Mrs. Stoll.
Good evening, and welcome to our wonderful school. I am Debbie Klein, and I'm so proud to be the principal and representative of this amazing place. I would like to welcome my new colleagues, John, Christine, and Jeff, to our district. You are joining an exceptional district family. I would also like to thank members of our PTA for supplying the snacks for tonight. I am fortunate to have alongside me, right behind me, an amazing team of professionals. They are like no other. The staff here at Emerson works tirelessly. I'm not exaggerating when I say many are here from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. They are so dedicated to ensuring that the beautiful children we serve are receiving a top-notch education. So I'd like them to stand and be recognized, please. We have had some interesting changes this year, and one of the most significant would be our change in mobility. Since last year, we have had 40 students move out of Emerson boundaries and 39 students move in. So although our mobility has changed significantly, we still remain a high-performing school. Our test scores continue to remain above the district average. Well, besides having the world's greatest staff and greatest students, we also think creatively on how to best address our changing population. And one of the tools that continue to help us in our instruction is the use of technology. So tonight, please take a minute to look at some of the projects the students made with the help of technology. You can see how the kindergartners collaborated with their big fifth grade buddies in the library, or how our fifth graders have researched the cultures that are represented within their grade level. All these examples of their work are on display just outside the gym. But right now, I would like to introduce you to really the star of tonight. He's one of our student council members. And you'll probably want to hire him once Rodney retires, because he is truly amazing with technology. Michael Lehmans has great ties to the district. His grandmother, Terry Tabine, is a first grade teacher at Weesbrook and here this evening, and his Aunt Jen is the principal at Washington. They are here to share in the pride of Michael's work. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome Michael to come up and tell about the day in the life at Emerson.
Good evening and welcome to Emerson School. My name is Michael Lehmans and I am a 5th grader on Student Council. I have helped with the technology at the school for a while. For example, I have created PowerPoints for the school to use to teach about our school rules called SOAR, SOAR. You can see our posters up in the hallway. I have also created a presentation about how we use technology every day in our school. I hope that you enjoy it.
Just so you know, Michael took all the videos, the pictures. This is a total Michael presentation. So Michael, take it away.
Okay, I make your turn. We're going outside as well.
Can you do another one?
Baby and they
And here goes his turn. Good job, Nellie.
lunch for the past week to put this together. So thank you, Michael, and thank you, Michael's family, for coming. I know you'll understand when I say thank you to my staff who puts in countless hours, and then I'm going to say go home and have a great evening with their family, so I'm going to send them away. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for that wonderful demonstration, Michael. You did a great job. And we appreciate it. All right, are there any modifications to the agenda that the board would say?
There is one modification per the request of Mr. Madsen. We did move one item from the consent agenda onto action this evening in relation to demonstration that anticipate him voting on this evening. So that item was already moved. It is reflected in the agenda.
I recognitions and achievements, Dr. Harris.
Thank you, Mrs. Intihar, and good evening and welcome. We are excited this evening to recognize a state champion as one of the honors the board gets to do, and myself. When we have state champions at our high school level, we are so honored to have them here this evening. We have the speech team from Wheat Warrenville South that is here, and I believe Mr. DeMarzo, is that correct? Back there in the back. If you wouldn't mind coming forward. Mr. Claypool isn't here, is he? I don't see him.
I haven't seen him.
No, okay. All right, just want to make sure you went back there and back somewhere. Mr. DeMarzo, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium there and tell us a little bit about your team here. I know you have several of them with you this evening, and I'd like to recognize them on their wonderful accomplishments.
Thank you. It was on the weekend of February 28th and 21st, we went down to Peoria Civic Center, where the state tournament started with 170 teams, and we had qualified in regionals and sectionals. In speech, there's 14 different events, and we qualified a number of them, the second most of the state tournament, and then we had 7 making the finals, which is tied for the most. And I brought the whole regional team here, so I'm going to introduce them. There were 3 that couldn't make it. So there's a total of 12 kids, but I'll introduce the 9 that are
Turn, slide it up, and then takes a few seconds. You're loud. I couldn't hold you.
I might not even need it. There we go. And so I'll introduce the students that are here. So representing dramatic duet acting, we only have one of the 2 of the duets, but senior Liv Barista. One of our team captains and competed in dramatic interpretation and original comedy is senior John Rooney. Competing in special occasion speaking is senior Michael Benassi. And then competing in oratorical declamation is junior Greg Nussbaum. And then one of our team captains who placed in 2 events, he placed 4th place in extemporaneous speaking, which to give you a little insight, he's given a current event topic and has 45 minutes to do research for a 6-minute speech. So placing 4th in the state in that, and then in impromptu speaking, he placed 3rd, where he's given either a word, a proverb, or a phrase that's given 2 minutes to come up with a 6-minute speech on the topic. So he placed 4th in extemp and 3rd in impromptu. That's senior Tyler McSan. And then in poetry reading, where you take a selection of poems or one poem and you create a program from it, placing 2nd in state is senior Grace McGuan. And then we have a theme with our duets, we only have one. But in humorous duet acting, where you do an 8-minute scene from a play, also placing 2nd in state, we have Katie Weeks. Her partner, Tommy Ottoland, couldn't make it. He has tennis practice. And then placing second also at the state level in informative speaking, where the student does research and writes a speech that is not supposed to persuade but inform you on a topic. Placing second at state is another one of our team captains, senior Marilyn Zubak. And then we did, not only did we win as a team, but we had one individual come out as an individual state champion, and this is in radio speaking. She's given a packet of news stories, and again, she has 45 minutes to cut it to a 5-minute news broadcast. And so state champion is senior Brooke Sommerfeld. And then also with me today, there's a bunch of coaches. We have 97 kids on the team. So this is just a small sample that makes it to that level. And we have many coaches that couldn't be here today. But we have one coach, Roberta James. Coming up, Roberta. I just want to say thank you for all of your support, for all the performing arts, but also for this great activity that gives so many life skills to these students in preparing a piece. I mean, we came out on top this year, but there's so many different weeks. You know, they learned so many different lessons about perfecting a piece and the pride in an individual accomplishment, but also the team. So this year we came out on top. So pretty happy. So thank you.
In a minute, we're going to each of you come around and shake our hands through the middle of the U here. But first, I just want to say thank you on behalf of District 200. As a superintendent of schools, it's always an honor to recognize our students for their tremendous accomplishment. Also, our staff coaches for your work. I know this is a huge time commitment by all of you, and it's wonderful to celebrate the success, and we're very proud of you in our community. So. Again, congratulations, and thank you for representing Wheat Warrenville South High School in the state meet, and congratulations. So each of you come along here and shake all of our hands. Thank you.
One thing that I learned, I went to their Tiger speech tournament, and I was told, tell me whether this is true or not, that instead of giving out trophies, we give out charitable contributions for winning teams.
At our we host the tournament, and instead of giving out trophies, we donate to the teams that place. We use the money that we would spend on the trophies and donate to the charity.
Now, Mr. DeMars, before you walk away, it's my understanding that you yourself were a state champion at one point, being a student of Wheat Warrenville South.
Not individually, but I was on the team.
All right, very good. So it's wonderful that I didn't know this was Has he ever told you that? Has he ever told you that?
No, I'm giving them more ammo to make money.
So anyhow, congratulations again. Thank you.
The last time we were state champions was when Dave was on the team. So after Donaldale, he took the reins and led us to the promised land.
All right, and thank you. And now we're come to the part of our agenda. We have public comments. The agenda topic is the agenda. I don't quite understand that tonight. Can you clarify that for me, Mr. Long? I'm sorry?
About technology, the contract, and
Oh, okay, so it's not the agenda itself, it's about technology?
no, it's about GCA contract, a couple things that's on the agenda tonight.
Okay, okay. All right, The opportunity to speak is provided to you who have a question or comment on an agenda item. The board appreciates hearing from you, values your thoughts and questions, and the board strives to make the best decisions for the district and the public in a variety of venues is very helpful. The board must protect the civility and decorum of the meeting, so please be respectful for the duties of the board and the democratic process in your comments tonight. Please use the microphone, state your name and address, and address your comments to the board. Limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please be factual and courteous, and do not use statements that are personally disrespectful or condescending to members of the board or staff. If you feel your matter needs to be discussed in more detail, please attend the board's chance to chat or address us tonight.
Yes, my name is Harold Longs, 26W274 Pinehurst, Winfield. One of the issues that caught my eye tonight on tonight's agenda is the GCA custodian cleaning service contract. Last July, you guys switched over to create a new contract, and then afterwards, we had a whole bunch of employees come in here that worked for the contracting company that lost their medical and drug benefits. And I have not heard whatever happened to those people that lost their benefits when you guys redid the contract. The other thing is regarding the technology report that's going to be given out later. It's amazing the number of open tickets that we have for the district. The quotes, the numbers are, I think 1,000. The last year was 1,015 tickets per month, and down this year it's down to 825. That's almost each employee having a ticket put in every 1, 2, or 3 months. That seems like there's a lot of technology issues going on regarding the number of tickets. And also what caught my eye is it takes an average of 35 hours to resolve an open ticket, which is about 1 week. That's long by any measure. And then the metrics, I found that pretty interesting too. The number one thing was software updates, and I find that a little concerning because we have not done a software upgrade in the last year or two. So why it was so high this year is a little dumbfounding. And also, number two is printers. Printers are dumb machines that shouldn't require that much, so many issues regarding it. And then the survey, the staff was not too happy with the amount of time it took to resolve the issues. 20% of the staff says they disagree with the amount of time. And then finally is the financials. I noticed that the budget, the actuals of the benefits are already at 86% of the budget for the year, and it's already $2 million over last year. And that's about 22% over the prior year. And also purchase services right now is at 101% of the budget. And I just got a question, these are big ticket items. Where is the money going to come from at the end of the year to pay for these services since they're already close or over the budget already for the year? That's it.
Is there anything staff would like to say, or I've been advised that for the technology issues, Mr. Longs, if you could please get those to Mr. Mack in writing. He'll be happy to address all of those and provide you with answers.
There is, Mr. Longs, if you have one specific answer to each one of those, myself or staff are more than happy to follow up with you. There are responses to each one of them and plenty of information to support your answers and questions.
Ready for the superintendent report, Dr. Harris.
Thank you, Mrs. Intar. A few items this evening from the superintendent's report. First of all, I was very happy to have school this morning. I can tell you I was up at 4:30 this morning on a conference call watching weather reports, and it turned out to be very doable today, and all the Page County schools were in session. We all wanted to touch base early to make sure, and the buses were pretty much on time all day long, which was great. And so at this time, we anticipate, Mother Nature cooperating, that the last day of school will be Tuesday, June 10th. The board will be asked to approve the final calendar at the April board meeting at that time, so we'll make it official. But this time, tentatively, that will be the final day of school for this school year. Also, I would like to introduce Liz Corey. Liz is here. Liz, if you'd like to come up to the podium. Liz, as board members know, is one of our co-chairs for the Engage 200 process, and she is here this evening to update the board on where we are coming up for March 26th.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here tonight to talk about our second community engagement session, which was held a couple weeks ago. We had over 300 attendees, not including the facilitating team, administrators, and board members. The presentation was done by Faith Dahlquist, and she's the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, and participants were asked to list their number one area to celebrate. And the number one area that they came up with in the working groups was the high academic achievement of the students. Number 2 was teachers. Number 3 was the diversity within the school district. And number 4 was the level of community involvement. And next they were asked to list the obstacles that are faced within the district. And number 1 was funding, and that's no surprise to anyone. And also the need for more support for interventions, staff development, and training for the differentiated instructions. And finally, the groups were asked to allocate $1. This was the exercise that the group had to work on, and break it down into cents. And basically, number 1 was 34 cents should be spent on intervention. And this is, of course, if there were additional monies to be spent. Number 2 was 29 cents for increased professional development. Number 3 was 25 cents for expanding digital learning. Number 4 was 7 cents for character development. And number 5 was 5 cents for other. And there were just a variety of different suggestions of ways to spend money. For a complete verbatim document, you can visit the district's website and view it online. And the next community engagement is scheduled for March 26th, and we hope that you'll all be able to make it. It's at 7 p.m. at Monroe Middle School. And the topic is going to be programs and services. And this will be broken into 3 distinct presentations. First will be special education with Assistant Superintendent Joanne Panopoulos. Okay. Number 2 will be ELL, that will be done by Faith Dahlquist. And number 3 will be co-curricular, which will be done by Assistant Superintendent Dr. Rammer. So we'd like to encourage the community to attend the next session, which is March 26th, as I already mentioned. All are invited, and we hope that you'll bring a friend along. Be sure to like us on Facebook. This is the plug that I have to give at the end. Follow us on Twitter, and visit the website to review information on the first 2 sessions. Thank you, and we hope to see you all there.
And unless there's any other questions on that topic, board members, Mr. Madison.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. The term intervention was the top item. What exactly does that mean, for starters?
Intervention means intervening and providing support for kids that may not be working up to grade level in math and reading. That's specifically what was talked about there.
Okay, and then the other one is, again, to emphasize the dates here, the programs and services we just talked about. On April 16th, the facilities component, which we're going to touch on a bit tonight. May 7th is finance, which is kind of the underlying of all the other topics in my mind, where it's about finance today. But, and then the summaries thereafter. Is there any point in any of these that we'll be actually talking about the technology program or its components in any of these?
On the April meeting, we will be talking about what a classroom looks like in the future, and so therefore it obviously involves technology. So we will be spending a significant amount of time focusing in on what a future classroom may look like. Mr. Farley and myself are currently working with our architects who will be putting together the majority of that presentation that evening. It is not finalized at this time, but it will involve talking about what the future classroom might look like in District 200.
And I'd like to add, since I'm a member of the community leading session subcommittee along with Mr. Paulson, Assistant Superintendent Dahlquist did address some technology issues during her presentation recently. And so it's kind of a recurring theme in a number of our community leading sessions.
Okay, unless there's any other questions, I'll move on to the next item here. So we certainly invite and anticipate a big turnout again on March 26th, and those of you here this evening, hopefully you'll be able to attend in Monroe that evening. I would like to update the board on a topic that is getting a lot of not only educators' attention, but also media attention here, as well as attention in Springfield in General Assembly, and that is the recommended new assessments for next year. We just completed our ISAT testing in grades 3 through 8 this past week. We're doing some makeup sessions now in several of the buildings, but most of the students have completed those tests. Next year, we are scheduled to implement a new assessment called PARCC, P-A-R-C-C. And those assessments are being piloted across the state over the next month or so. But there have been a significant amount of concerns and questions about what those assessments might be looking like in our classrooms. In grades 3 through 8, we anticipate the transition being okay, is how I would describe it. There is some technology concerns. The new assessments are online using devices. We are prepared to meet that requirement internally. We do have significant concerns about whether the vendor is going to be able to handle the capacity. When we have every student in the state, grades 3 through 11, log on at the same time one morning at 9 o'clock. I can tell you every superintendent in the state is concerned about that, and we have been voicing that concern. But the majority of the concern with the PARCC assessments is lying currently at the high school level. And what the testing scenario will look like there. ACT has now disengaged the Explore and the Plan assessments for coming years. This is the last year that they will use those assessments. They have a new sequence that they're trying to promote called ACT Aspire. Our state currently has not chosen to pursue that particular assessment. So we are in the progress of our process of approving and implementing the PARCC assessments in the near future. The plan currently at the state level is to give these assessments in grades 3 through 8 and also 9, 10, and 11. However, the state has also said they would allow us for 1 year to continue to give the ACT test. But then their current plan, which I believe is getting reconsidered at this time, is to discontinue the ACT test for all students at grade 11. And the districts would have to schedule it on their own if they would choose to do that. Well, I can assure you that every district in the state certainly recognizes the importance and the value of the ACT test for our juniors and our high schools. Most of our students would take it anyway, but it has become the norm. And many of our students that may not have taken it in the past are taking it now. It opens doors for them to where they may be headed after they graduate from our district. So by eliminating this assessment, as required by the state of Illinois, has a significant amount of concern at the superintendent level for many, many districts. I have been directly involved with the letter that was written. I believe I shared that with the board several weeks ago to the state superintendent. I actually went down a week and a half ago and met with the state superintendent along with 5 other district superintendents, and we had a conversation about those concerns. Most recently, I've had a conversation with our legislators about those same issues. I talked with Mrs. Ives and also with Representative Peelch yesterday. I have not heard back from the others at this time, but I do anticipate it within the next few days. I believe this issue is getting some interest in Springfield. In fact, 2 bills were put on the floor today, both in the Senate and the House, directly related to this conversation. It's not only going on in our community, but also in other parts of the state. So it will remain to be seen how this planning for these assessments are going to play out. The bottom line and the recommendations from the superintendents are that the junior year is just unacceptable. Students primarily would be starting testing around the 1st of March and would test the rest of the school year with very few days of instruction. With the PARCC assessment, with final exams, AP placement tests, and then the ACT itself. So it was a huge window of almost 8 to 12 weeks of nothing but testing for a junior in high school. Completely inappropriate and unacceptable from the educator's perspective. We were given some initial responses that were unacceptable. Why don't you discontinue giving final exams? That was one recommendation that was offered. They also suggested that we give the ACT test on Saturdays and have our kids. There was just a range of things that were offered as suggestions, and I can tell you the superintendents were not thrilled with any of those suggestions. So we are pursuing some action that would hopefully slow down the implementation process, especially at the high school level with this particular assessment. We're asking for them to delay it, maybe extend the pilot over a period of a couple of years, and also relook at some of these other assessments. ACT just came out with a new product of their own, which would start in grade 3 and all the way through 11. There's also SAT just announced this week. If anybody has seen that week, it's been on the front page of the New York Times as well, talking about their realignment. They know that they're behind the game when it comes to their assessments and their process as well. Smarter Balance is another product that's out there that many states across the country have adopted that assessment. And probably one of the biggest concerns that we have is that higher ed is not engaged at all in accepting the PARCC assessment as an entrance requirement, or even taking a look at that data to whether or not to consider a kid for a 2- or 4-year school, any type of higher ed. In fact, I was at a meeting at the College of DuPage about a month and a half ago, and somebody asked a question. Paige, you were there with me, and Joe Bolo, Principal North, we were there. And somebody asked, well, what is your opinion of the PARCC assessment? No idea. The staff that was in the room there, representing the president and his deans of the college, didn't even know what the PARCC was, let alone whether they even consider it as an admission criteria into any of their programs or any of the coursework for COE. That's COE. That's our closest partner. The one right here in our own community that we work the closest with, let alone any other school that our kids attend when they leave our district. So there is red flags all over the place with this assessment, the timeline that they're currently on. There is not a given solution at this point. I can assure you that I am directly involved in this conversation, not only with our representatives, but the superintendent, and will continue to be. If you have any questions about what I've shared, I'm certainly happy to answer, but if you'd like to follow up another time, that would be fine as well. But I will keep you informed as we move forward. We do hope that some consideration will be given in changing the timeline for the implementation of our new state assessment next year. Any questions about what I've shared?
Who's the they that refer to that, suggesting not to have finals instead of?
Staff, state superintendent and his staff. There's a director of assessment and also assistant superintendent at the state level with the Illinois State Board of Education.
Who's the clout behind the opposition on the State Superintendent's Association? What about the Illinois School Board Association? Who's our helpers on this? It's absurd that we have 2 months of testing and no request.
The Illinois State Board of Education is responsible for implementing the assessments as well as the Common Core curriculum. And they've established that, as you all know, that we're making adjustments to making sure we're ready for this assessment. They've been, that's their responsibility throughout every school and district in the state of Illinois. The legislature does not take action on those particular items other than the funding to support it. And so there is a hearing coming up in March, on March 25th, that I know some of the superintendents are going to go down and testify with the Appropriations Committee, and we are going to take every angle possible to try to slow this train down and rethink what we're doing, especially at the high school level in regard to the assessments. So the staff of the Illinois State Board of Education certainly has the authority to implement these changes and the accountability components. And really that's what this is about. It's about accountability. It's about making sure that we're teaching what we're expected to be teaching, which we have to present the results and ends up in the media and the newspapers and so on. But therefore we have to implement these and we'll be required to do it. Dave, anything I'm missing here on that question?
Brian, what's the motivation behind the ISDP for promoting the PARCC high school level when we're already together with ACT? I might add in following some characters in the qualification proposal. So I'm going to say what's the rationale behind the devotion to PARCC?
In fairness, I do believe educators, including myself, believe that this PARCC assessment is a good assessment. Okay, we believe it. Now, it has not been piloted yet, so we know it's aligned. We also know it's aligned grades 3 through 11. So one of the issues that we've dealt with for many, many years at this table is the disconnect between the ACT test that goes on at the high school level and then the ISET test that we begin in grades 3 through 8. So the PARCC assessment it solves one problem, no doubt about it, for having that consistent assessment over all those grade levels throughout the state of Illinois. It also is verified to be aligned to the Common Core. That was another big piece of this that the state superintendent wanted to make sure they selected an assessment that was aligned to the Common Core standards. Now, there are other assessments that are also aligned with Common Core. However, the state superintendent has aligned himself with this particular assessment. He is actually on the National Board of Directors and has been involved in the development of this assessment. So there is a connection there. I do believe, well, I believe he believes it's a good assessment. And so, you know, in all fairness to Superintendent Cook, you know, I do believe I believe he believes that it is good, although he definitely is directly involved in why Illinois has been one of the leading states in promoting this particular assessment of the Common Core standards. Any other questions on that topic? I have two more quick ones.
I have just one quick question. There was a point in time in the past when there were certain school districts in the state of Illinois who did want us to abandon the ACT as part of our PSA, Thursday exam testing. Are you finding support from those people now with the ACT, or is there a conflict among superintendents about PARCC versus ACT?
I don't believe there's conflict among the superintendents. In fact, early on, there was significant concern that the ACT was too challenging for many students, and that was a curricular issue at the local level, not necessarily, you know, an assessment issue. Now, it was a significant change to what was going on. There was no doubt about it. However, fast forward 10 years, Max McGee was the superintendent at the time that implemented that change. The districts have adapted and have done very well. The key here is the colleges recognize that as a significant criteria for entrance. And that, you know, as all of us are focused on college and career readiness for our students, you know, the ACT has 50, 60 years of history there of determining long-term success for kids and being a pretty good indicator. Not 100% proof, but a pretty good indicator of student success and readiness for the next step. So, to answer your question, I believe everybody is in support of the ACT. I think we would like to see the Aspire and see what success it would have. It's been piloted. It has not been used in Illinois. So that's why we're asking the state to slow down. Let's reevaluate. Let's see what, you know, what we can do over a period of the next couple of years to hopefully get a better assessment moving forward as well. That's our suggestion. A couple other quick items. I did want to draw the board's attention to the report that is a written report this evening, the technology baseline report, directly related to the reliability and stability of our network. And I can assure you that that report is crystal clear in the analysis of what's been happening not only this past year, but also the year before in our district. We selected 4 different criteria, items that we were monitoring, not only the tickets that were issued, but also the amount of tickets. We have increased our technology significantly in our district over those 2 years. A lot more devices, a lot of different types of issues. We're starting to pay attention to different issues. As staff, as you've seen in many presentations, are using it more and more and more in their daily instruction. There's a lot of new softwares that teachers come across every day and ask for new items to be added to devices and to the server and so on. A lot of those softwares are free. They're not purchased, they're free. And that's the nature of using web-based solutions. And I know board members actually have demonstrated how that's going to be an whole meeting. So we're going to continue to monitor these statistics over a period of time. We also surveyed staff. And there was a significantly favorable response time by staff and our IT department, and the increase in attention has been given to the reliability and stability of our equipment and our devices over time. And we're going to be spending the entire meeting on April 23rd talking about district technology, the stability and reliability, but also where we may be headed over the next several years, and have a conversation at the table here on April 23rd. So I encourage you to read that report. We will be spending more time in that conversation here in the very near future about where we're headed, where we're at today, and where we're headed into the future. And finally, I have 3 individuals here this evening I'd like to introduce that are on the personnel report. First, Jeff Mitchum is the recommendation for our new principal at Lincoln Elementary. Jeff coming to us from Valley View School District. Christy Frederick, who is the recommendation to be the new principal at Pleasant Hill Elementary School. Christy is an experienced elementary elementary principal in Plainfield currently. We're delighted to have her join us as well in District 200. And also in the personnel report this evening is John Robinson. John is our recommendation for Director of Facility Services. Mr. Farley and his staff interviewed several candidates for that position, and John is coming to us with a lot of experience in the private sector as well as in public schools as the Director of Facilities. We're excited to have him replacing Mr. Gerard, who will be retiring at the end of the school term. So, all of you, whenever the personnel report is approved here, I assume shortly, that you will be officially hired in District 200. We welcome each of you and look forward to working in the near future. So that concludes the superintendent's report, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Here we now come to the consent agenda. And we have 11 items on the consent agenda. Acceptance of gifts from the Lowell PTA. Acceptance of gifts from the Madison PTA. Approval to post policy 7.25 teen dating violence prohibited for public review and comment. Approval to post revised policy 4.22 board fund balance for public review and comment. Approval to post the geometry textbook. Approval of IHSA annual renewal. Approval of the 2014-2015 fee schedule. Approval of the GCA Services Group custodial cleaning services contract renewal. Approval of bills payable and payroll. Approval of minutes February 12, 2014 open and closed. February 26, 2014 special meeting and committee of the whole. And approval to destroy recording of closed sessions prior to October 2012. Approval of personnel report to include employment, resignation, retirement, and leave of absence of administrative, certified, classified, and non-union staff. Are there any items that board members wish to be removed from the consent agenda? Okay, then we need to take action on the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I move to accept the consent agenda items.
Mr. Cronin?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Paulson. Is there any discussion?
I just had one question about number 5, the postal geometry textbooks. I think if I recall in December when we were in Washington, we talked, Davis and Mackis and I turned the committee report into a discussion item on technology. But there was some talk, I know it's exploratory, about converting to a one-to-one or highlighting a one-to-one. I'm just curious as to how you guys look at this policy.
We had shared that with the Education Committee and that we were considering through this process looking at different resources. I'm going to turn over to Faith and let her comment about where we landed and why we landed where we did.
Sure, thanks for the opportunity to clarify this, because you are correct that I came and talked to you about the exciting opportunity of perhaps going to one-to-one devices for most of our freshmen with the rollout of the new geometry textbook. Then came the news about CPI. And budget cuts and things that needed to be done. So we disbanded the idea of being able to go to one-to-one devices for about 1,000 of our students in geometry. And what we are looking at and what we are asking to post, it is a digital textbook as well as a paper copy. So there will be the combination of that, but since we can't guarantee to have those devices, we will still be purchasing some paper copies. What happens with the textbook companies is they give you a very close rate that if you buy one, you get the other almost for no cost. So when I bring that back, assuming that it is approved, you'll notice that the budget, we're not purchasing near the amount of textbooks to go one for every student, but a combination. So we're able to do that digital piece as well as having a traditional textbook.
Is it Robin?
I submitted an email to Superintendent Harrison on Monday asking some questions about the consent agenda. One of them was about the GCA Services Group, Custodial Human Services Contract, which is an item that Mr. Lance raised in his comments. And I asked the same question that Mr. Lance raised, and Harrison supplied the answer.
Sure. After discussing this with GCA, we believe that issue has been resolved at this point. And, you know, us and that company will continue to follow the Affordable Care Act and all the details with that. And also along with the renewal here in this contract and consent agenda will involve an increase in salary for the employees. And so I think that was part of the discussion with them as well. So I believe that is where that is settled according to what the GCA leadership shared with us. Anything else on that, Mr. Parker? Is that clear? Okay.
And just the salary issue was key, we believe, this year. They were going to be reviewing now in May, I believe. So, the last 3 contracts that the board approved with GCA were basically for 0% increase. They waived their right to access the CPI, so we have the contracts that are 0% increase. You know, the bid, we did it in GCA was the lowest qualified bid we recall last year. But the contract was the public bid process.
Any other questions?
When you were talking about the one-on-one, so does that mean there will be the online or digital for everybody plus some books, or how do you divvy that up?
Good question. So at some of our classes, there'll be the opportunity, everybody will have the opportunity to have access to that digital textbook. However, that doesn't mean that we have devices to provide for everyone. So we'll still need to have paper copies for books and for students to be able to have access to that. So it's going to differ by teacher, kind of what their preference is, and also what our capabilities are. Our first year may look different from our second year as how many students are actually using paper copies of that, but we will not be purchasing a paper copy for every single student.
In that same vein, Rodney and I went to a program that talked about Chromebooks being a device that was popular in certain schools. And we went to a school board association meeting where I think they talked about using not just Chromebooks, but iPads and other devices that may already be in the household where Chromebooks may not be. And I'm just curious, as on these textbooks that are potentially one-on-one, will they be accessible by any of those, or and then secondarily, before we commit totally to one program or another, we've heard kind of diversity now about choices. So I assume there'll be a time where we'll discuss that in more depth.
The online textbooks are online, so any device can access the textbook. It's not a software, it's not something we purchase and have on site. It's online, and you have to have a log, correct? And so therefore, you can use any device, a phone to a desktop to a laptop to any device.
Just one more comment about the personal report. I just met Jeff and Christy tonight, but I've actually known Mr. Robinson for about 5 years, and I'm very excited about him taking over as our Director of Facility Services. I think given all the conversations we've had in the past month, and probably will be having for many years with his background, I think he's going to be a perfect guy to lead our district and excited.
Okay, any other comments? Alrighty then, Mrs. Hutchison, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Berman?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cogdill?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Indiana?
Yes, thank you. We have a couple of action items tonight. The first is the approval of a contract with Performance Services. Dr. Harris?
As board members are aware, one of the reasons why we passed the working cash bonds a month ago was that so we could get going on a significant amount of work this summer. And tonight we're going to, before you take action on this item, we're going to do a brief review of the work that we're asking you to approve this evening. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Farley and you can introduce staff materials. Mr. Farley.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Tonight we're going to review briefly, the board has seen part of this presentation already, but we're going to run through some of the work that's going to be done. Since the bond sale was approved, we've met collectively with Performance Services as well well as like architects, to plan out the scope and sequence of what the work that's going to happen this summer. And not only is, there's some carryover or light work going on with the roof work with Leggett and Performance Services, but we also have work that's going on in and around our other schools, Johnson, for example, with the paving that's going on outside while a bunch of work is going on inside. So we're working on that cross-coordination and those efforts. So the staff has met multiple times with Performance Services and Leggett together as we move forward for these projects. Asked Performance Services to look at a few other items, to not necessarily add scope, but get some pricing to get more connectivity to our schools, as well as utility and Johnson Elementary School. So Weeds here, who you've met before multiple times, who's going to run through just a very quick presentation, which I believe the board has at their spots, and we'll run through kind of where we've been since February. I know it's only been a few weeks since February second meeting, where the board approved moving forward with Bob. So I'll turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Bill. Okay. Where's Michael?
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to present. As Seth mentioned, I will be brief. Most of this is a review of what you've seen from the January presentation, but we want to just kind of go through project history to date, go through the scope of the project and the schedule, answer any questions that you may have in regards to the upcoming work. Just as a review, about this time last year, we finished our review of your 20 buildings, which is a little over 2 million square feet. Identified with your team over $30 million worth of needs at the schools. This fall, we met with your facility committee, and they chose the highest priorities working together with us, and that's where we started that improvement list that you saw back in January. We presented obviously at the January meeting, and then at the end of February we met again to finalize that and to go through timing with regards to this upcoming project. As mentioned before, there are 18 buildings. We really focused on age systems as well as learning environment issues, and then also energy savings, obviously, which is a key component, and incentives and grants. The biggest work to be done out of this project will be at Wheaton North. And there we're looking to replace the aged unit ventilators. In January you had a nice little video of one of those that had given way. So those are all coming out, putting in vertical units similar to what you have at Hubble. Those are great units. We've installed thousands of those and customers are really happy with them. Also you have an obsolete automation system, the IBEX system, which is costing you a lot just to maintain. It limits what you can do control-wise. It's been a challenge for your team to maintain, so that's going to be replaced and give you an upgraded system. Also, the gym air handling units, which are 50 plus years old and have started to literally fall apart. Your team's done a great job keeping them together. We're going to replace those. And then there's a roof section that is going to be replaced as part of that project, basically. You've seen these pictures from our meeting in January. You have the unit ventilators, that's the air handler in the gym. That's just a picture of the controls. That's the last portion of that roof that was in need of repair, and that'll get done this summer. And this is what you're looking at in the classrooms, those vertical units. They're extremely quiet. When those are in there, we'll be able to guarantee, and we'll guarantee temperature, humidity, background noise levels, as well as ventilation. And so you're not just getting a piece of equipment, you're getting the results that you're looking for. Next project in terms of scope and size will be Johnson. As between Johnson and Washington as to which one was in most need, and Johnson was chosen. At that one, again, we're replacing unit ventilators with vertical units. The control system, which is mostly pneumatic, currently Colin and Tom can't even see into the building to see what's going on. They manually turn things on and off there. So it'll be an upgrade to a digital system, replace the central plant, which is the boilers and chillers with high efficiency boilers and chillers, and upgrade the lighting. And there are some pictures of the systems. To me, that means a lot, I know, but that's kind of what we do. There's a lot more that we can show you. At Emerson Pier, there's about $1 million worth of work. The majority of that's on the roof. So that's where the majority of the work will be. In addition to that, we will be installing fan power relief. That's like a big attic fan, and they're variable speed controlled. What we'll be doing there is increasing the ventilation in the classrooms. We're going to be doing that in almost all your elementary buildings. They aren't getting the fresh air that you'd like to have in there. And also, during moderate temperatures, we can use that to cool the room, like an attic fan would at night, and draw the air through. So we'll be doing that in almost all your elementary schools as part of this project, including at Emerson. And also upgrading the lights from an energy efficiency standpoint. They have great rebates for those, which makes the payback very attractive. And then on almost all your elementaries as well, one of the things we just recently added is better communication, network communication with the controls so that Alan and John and his team will be able to actually see the building. When we had these bad winters, they were actually having to come to the buildings to check and make sure boilers were working and the things were responding that they wouldn't know unless there was no way for them to know. So we're going to give them that information as part of the project. And we can work a little south. That didn't have a lot of issues. The big one that we'll be replacing is these Coyote feed drives, which are old. They cost a lot to maintain. We replaced those at North 2 years ago with basically current technology. And then he has some kitchen costs. So really, there's not a lot of work at South that we want done there. As I mentioned, on the remaining 14 schools, really they can be classified into the classroom ventilation, which I mentioned. There's some lighting fixture upgrades, and then either building control upgrades like at Franklin, we're going to be doing a little work, or at elementary schools like this where we're adding communication. So just a brief schedule review, meeting today. There's some equipment that has long lead time items, and so we'd like to get those on order. That's one of the reasons we're moving at this pace. We'd like to get those in order this month because they have about a 10 to 12 week lead time, so pretty soon you're into summer. In addition, we will have final pricing on everything but the roofs by the end of this month for review by your team. So in the book process, we have all our costs involved, all the contractors, all the equipment. They review and your team basically selects each one of those with our recommendation. The roof pricing will be in by May 5th, and so we'll have all those numbers by order of May. Summer work will not start on June 9th. It'll actually start June 11th then.
Mother Nature willing.
Assuming, yes, no more delays. We will be complete by start of school in August. Summer, there's certain work that we'll still be working on, like boilers. We wouldn't plan to even have started until we get some sort of load, so that won't be started until September. And then we'll also be working on controls and punch list and commissioning through the end of the year. But all work that will be done so that there won't be any issues with school startup or any issues with the learning environment at all. Final point on that is with the controls, we'll be working on that, fine-tuning it over the first year, the first full year.
There you go.
Mentioned the controls. We worked on those for the first year because as seasons change, you have to fine tune them a little bit. And when you go from heating to cooling, heating, so we'll be working on that. In the information I gave you included is this basic timeline or schedule. It's towards the end. You have your PowerPoint presentation. I also have a summary of the work. The schedule is 17. It's up here, but it's really difficult to see the difference. But it shows most of the bullet points that I went through. And then the last section is the improvement list that we had for not to exceed amount. That's the summary that I have. Are there any questions?
Mr. Paulson?
Okay. A couple questions. First off, the $30 million it needs to identify these questions. that included within the big list we've been talking about all these years?
Many of those items are on the priority list that we have. We obviously shared that when Performance Services started the review of our buildings. And there are items that do cross with that list, the majority of them, as far as that $30 million list. So some of the things that are on Performance Services list may not be on it, like the attic fan example.
Fan power relief.
Fan power relief, that's again trying to improve learning environment to provide more ventilation. So, and those type of ad items probably are not necessarily on that list, but a good portion of the mechanical upgrades that we're doing are definitely on our master list.
Yeah, I just have a couple more questions. First off, on the controls at North and Johnson, is it the same control systems?
They will be, yes. They'll be an open platform. We're going to go with Allerton as base, but we'll also get a price on another open platform system.
And at the other, I think it was 9 schools were doing that control interface, which allows us to look in from a distance. But those are still overlaying pneumatic control systems in those buildings, correct?
There's a few that are pneumatic. All have a front end, the old, let's say Johnson, DSCA, old technology. And what we're trying to do is improve it so at least he can hop on and see that information. On some of those, we'll be adding a few control points because he currently, Colin can't even see the supplier return temp on the boilers. So just some basic points so you can say, okay, boilers are running, or some temperatures in some areas so that he can make sure that the building's, is all right. So, but yeah, we will not be doing full-fledged replacement.
Functionally, it allows us to see it and make sure there's no problems, whereas with a complete digital system, be able to modify individual rooms and address issues, change set points, which is ideal. We're not close to that.
No, some of those are $2,000 to $5,000 versus a full replacement.
And then just the one last question in terms of the roofing projects, Langley's involved in that, when they involved all the way through construction administration. Okay. And then I know that this is a part of the overall list we're looking at. There's going to be a lot of other bids coming our way to improve in the next probably April or early May.
Yes, that is correct. We will have several items that Leggett is working directly on. The other items, if you recall the list, lockers, carpet removal, fire alarms, the traffic, again, all those different items. But those are not part of performance service or anything related. So you're becoming more traditional.
No, and just the last thing, I like the scope of Johnson. We're almost providing almost an entirely new mechanical system, unit ventilators, the hot water heated chillers, controls. That's a nice upgrade for that school.
It's tough to do a partial on something like that. Because, and that was part of the discussion after our board meeting in January, was everything's getting replaced but the chiller. And the chiller's at its expected useful life. The last thing you want to do is spend that money there and then have that go out for 3 years. So we're releasing prices. It'll be separate so that you can make those selections.
Johnson, I believe, opened in 1989. Is that correct? That the year? So it's original equipment.
Everything in there is original.
Mr. Gagliani, questions? Mrs. Swanson?
Well, just a couple things. First of all, I wanted to thank Mr. Gagliani and Mrs. Cockhill for wrestling around with this list of priorities. And, I know that staff had great input in it, but that would be something that would make my eyes look over. So thank you guys for doing that. And related to that, though, I would like to follow up on what Mr. Paulson was asking about projects that aren't part of that. I'm wondering if these projects could be made part of that list. As I understand it, one of the reasons for having that list is to have a historical record of what we're doing. And so whether we currently do the project or it's part of the $30 million that we don't do, just asking that the committee take a look at that and see whether it makes sense to combine that and have it all on the list with some sort of priority designation so that we can keep track of work that's done.
Anytime we do work, we update the document to indicate when the work was done. Going back to the fan example, sorry for using your term, but that will then go on our list as a new piece of equipment that we're then going to have to give a great, a priority and a condition. Obviously, it'll go in under educational environment. Priority and condition would be free because it's brand new, and as that equipment ages, then it'll move to a 2 and then to a 1 to be replaced. So yes, we'll definitely, everything we do, we try and indicate that work was done, so it's there as a public record, that when it was done, and then also we change the condition of that when work was done. Similar to the North work we did a few years ago, we do that all under the 3,
So that's perfect, and I guess what I'm asking is think about whether or not any of the remaining of the $30 million projects should go on the list as something that we want to keep an eye on for the future, would be my request.
Just a couple comments. One comment and a question. I'm thankful that both Jim and Joanne have gone through the performance services curriculum and learned all they can about this performance services contracts. I hope you to the board. But just for the record, this is not all that performance services will be doing. We'll be also looking for rebates, grants, discounts, or whatever that will partially recompense all this work.
Yes, I think to date it's over 320,000, I think, and through the first 2 projects. And that's part of our final design, and as well as guaranteed savings will be rebated.
And also, just for the record, after this work is done, we'll be coming back and monitoring these systems to make sure they're performing as they are, and we'll experience the energy savings and improvement in the educational environment that we expect.
Yes, that's correct, part of the contract.
Ms. Condo, comments, questions?
Well, I think it's become more and more evident, the value in owning a performance company. I love expertise and advice, and that it saves, so much in the long haul. So I'm very impressed by your services and that, you're watching us and looking at the best interest and just expertise in so many areas. And I love that now, after the summer, that all buildings will have this power fan relief and they're bringing in fresh air. But it just makes so much sense for our kids, just have fresh air and for people staying awake, getting awareness and alertness. So that's a big deal.
It really helps, especially in those shoulder seasons where you don't have your chiller on. You can bring in a lot of time, a lot of fresh air, but also most of those were designed at a lower fresh air minimum and versus current code. So or current expected levels. So we can bring that up to that level.
Mr. Madison, any questions?
I understand from this is a 7.2 million not to exceed, and this is pretty much what I'll call the attachments to the building, as compared to parking lots and so on that are external to this. And I assume that any cost in those regards will be coordinated to not conflict with timing or construction progress of the community.
We will be, Mr. Farley and Mr. Robinson will be working directly with all of our vendors this summer to make sure that work is coordinated correctly.
For pretty common occurrence, what you're working with, we're doing the inside and then not having to doing outside work or something along those lines.
What are the large outside, I guess? I know we have the parking lot, the track. What are the other major outside projects that are part of what I'll call the $10 million?
Really, we're doing the paving work at Wheaton Linville South, which is pretty significant. The paving in Johnson is pretty significant. It's that whole back area, although I'd love to do more over there and more in the south. We're doing the high critical areas at both of those locations. We're also doing the track at Wheaton North High School. Those are the big ones. The rest of the work, we've got some small work at Whittier and Madison. We are doing the hard surface play areas at Whittier and Madison as well. Those are part of the paving. Those are just driving layovers that we'll be doing there as well. So those are pretty much the major work that's going on. outside during the summer. Significant carpet work at the middle school level and lockers in Monroe. 2 other large projects that are way over.
That's not part of this.
No, that will be coming to you with additional bids in the near future, very near future.
Dr. Harris, I did have one question. We get a lot of information from you, and maybe I just read too many emails, but did we receive some grant money for Emerson for the roof or something, or did I miss? I'm just wondering if I misread that email.
You're absolutely correct, $50,000 grant for the Emerson roof.
We applied for it and we received it.
Again, mysterious ways we received it already.
State of Illinois, we can't pay their bills on some things, but we get construction money like that.
Again, they're on the money.
It's bonded. It's bonded, it's not based on some tax revenues or allocations by the General Assembly, and so therefore it's allocated and we receive it.
What else do we have on our $30 million list that we could do similarly?
Jefferson Fire Alarm, which we've applied for that too, which you approved last month. We're waiting to hear on that, we will let you know when we find out.
It's all right that they paid us early. We only waited about 10 years for the high school money, so. Anyway, I have one question, and excuse me for my ignorance here. What are Coyote speed drives and VFDs?
Variable frequency drives are VFDs. So in the old, I'm looking through your numbers here. You have a fan and it runs at a constant speed. What a variable frequency drive does is it actually slows down the motor, slows down the fan so that you get less air in there. When there's nobody in a room, you don't need a lot of air going through. So at South, you have these old drives that Dale and I have been doing this a long time, and the only place we've ever seen these. And they cost an arm and a leg to fix, and you have to send it into somewhere in Texas, and a month or 2 later you get it back. Meanwhile, your air handler doesn't have a drive to work from, so Matt's actually having to rewire things. So basically, you're putting new current technology on it, and it's an energy efficiency method.
Something that drives a fan, that drives air circulation.
Yes.
I just didn't, a drive to me is like a disk drive, a hard drive to a computer, so I want to be clear on that.
That's helpful.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Can we have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Paulson? Second by Mrs. Coghill. Is there any further discussion? All right, Mrs. Hutchinson, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghill?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Groman?
Yes.
Mrs. Engelhardt?
Yes, motion approved. Actually, sorry. Okay, our next action item is approval of athletic trainer services contract extension. May we have a motion, please?
So moved. Moved by Mrs. Swanson.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Paulson. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, maybe we have the roll, Mrs. Hutchinson.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghill?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson?
I have to abstain on this?
Mr. Groman?
Yes.
Mrs. Engelhardt?
Yes, motion passes. Next, we have 3 written reports tonight. The Department of Technology Baseline Data Report, which we discussed a little bit earlier. Thank you for that. And our monthly financials, thank you to Mr. Farley for that. And a FOIA report. Any questions on any of those reports?
I have a couple on financial, whoops, sorry.
Mr. Matheson?
Okay, a couple on financial. Number one, I noticed that we have now borrowed about 25 million in the education fund, and that's kind of kept us above the board. Had we not done that, we would have run out of cash and investments in the education fund. Item one, I guess about that. And then I noticed also the bill list, or I guess that was.
Question about that?
Well, I'm pointing out that that we're running, we need a working cash fund to basically sustain our ability to pay bills throughout the year. We're at that point, obviously. We won't see any tax revenue until early May at the earliest, or June. So, it's important that we have some working capital reserve.
I'm sorry, I thought you had a second question, or, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
I just noticed FOIA requests, there were two of them were pretty extensive and a lot of requests, which of course, everyone has the right to do. I'm just curious the time for the staff that was needed for those, I don't know the ballpark that, but if they were simple questions or if they were just.
Categorically, yes, it takes up a significant amount of staff time, and never quite sure what the intent is on some of this. We speculate by reading them and the requests, but I don't know, Dr. Rammer, any comments on any significant amount of staff time? Dr. Rammer responds to all the requests, but it's not just him that collects a lot of information and data. Any comment on that?
You're right, it does. This is a pretty extensive list this month, and several of these for quite a bit of time from a number of departments, not just my department, but a number of departments within the district, to find the material, to make the appropriate copies, and in some cases, there were some extensive redactions that needed to be done because of the ability or the inability of people to request information that we can't release. So this was a pretty busy month for FOIA in the district.
We do accrue legal fees many times too, because our attorneys have to review some of them, not all of them, some of them depending on the scope and the breadth and the expectation. So we do have that cost as well.
Any other questions?
Sorry.
Let you just go on and. Now. Okay. All right, thank you. Are there any reports? I'm sorry, Mr. Paulson.
Yeah, just one question on the technology report. First off, the report. I can see how it's very clearly aligned with our goals for the year, both at the board level and the superintendent level. One question or two questions, kind of the same question. Maybe this is just prompting discussion maybe April 23rd. But we see all the time the gifts that are donated to the schools by the PTAs, and there's technology and smart boards and iPads. And I noted a comment here about how these purchases, they put additional burden. Sometimes we get those all the time. They put a burden on the Department of Technology. Do we have a way for those donations to get reported to our technology staff ahead of time? Is there some kind of standard or vision we've been given to the PTAs to say, hey, if you're going to donate something, we'd like you to leave this model? Because it seems like we see smart boards a lot, and there's other versions of digital display devices that many people think are more appropriate.
I would just say, I'll let Mr. Mack comment in more detail. Yes, yes, and yes. There didn't used to be, and we had quite an array of equipment and devices until about 4 years ago. Let's just put that in. And now we have a very tight spec and requirement. Anytime a PTA or some outside donations can be made, we ask them to work directly with our IT staff, and whether it's an overhead, an LCD projector, if it's a smart board, if it's a digital device in the classroom, whatever it is. We have set out those specs and what we can service and what we can support. We still have some aging equipment that is, I would classify as dying on the vine, that still requires a lot of attention and some of this support. that, we will let it run its life, and then no longer then we'll replace it. But then as we move forward, we're going to continue to monitor that. As stuff is donated, which we appreciate the donations, it's phenomenal. It does, add responsibility to our staff. I would never say it's not one, because it's one. However, it does, add responsibility. So, and like bulbs and the LCD projectors and ongoing expenses to that equipment as well. Anything else I missed?
No, you got that pretty good. It is. We do have a recommended list, and all PTAs do work with our department as they purchase things. But it is outside of the 1,800 or so devices we've added in the last couple of years, we've probably seen an increase of 400 from the PTAs, which is again time spent. If there's issues with it, getting it hung, a lot of things go. I would say a lot of times also facilities where they hang from the ceiling, they have to mount the smart boards on the wall. There's a lot of, but again, without that support from PTA, we wouldn't have those numbers to begin with. So I think, really the technology department budget really buys desktops and laptops are all we really supported, budgetarily, and all of those extra things that will come up on the 23rd at the next community engagement about what's in the perfect classroom. A lot of that stuff has come from the PTAs and their sponsorship. So.
The other, comment I get, and it's really more of a future discussion for the board, I noted that 95% of the issues take between 36 and 40 hours to resolve, which feels like 2 days of instructional time if it's a teacher. It almost feels like a decision we have to make as a board. Is that acceptable? Is it not acceptable? We have to add another 1 tech person or 2 tech people to get that to a level that's acceptable for us, for our teachers. So I think Mr. Wong's touched on it a little bit, but something I think we're going to have to decide in the budget beginning April 23rd is the issue. Feels good because it's a lot less than it was, but I don't know if it's where we want it to be.
I would like to clarify too that our clock is a 24-hour clock. So that's one I don't count. They're not 8 hours, so it's not. Don't think it's 5 days later. It is a 36-hour. So if it's in at 8 a.m., it's, hopefully by 8 p.m. I guess I'll work at 8 p.m. But one of them does here now. But for the most part, that there's no way for us to differentiate working hours and non-working hours. Those are clock hours. So we get killed on tickets that are put in at 5 o'clock on a Friday because they take until Monday morning till we even see it. But that is on a 24-hour clock.
But essentially,
it's still a lot of time.
The vast majority of these issues are 2 days of instruction. If I was a teacher, that would be a barrier to me to effectively.
One thing to point out there, you have to pay attention to what the ticket issues are. We're going to go into huge detail on the 23rd. We've started to see a shift in what the issues are. So the because more and more use, the issues have shifted from mechanical types of things to more needs for additional software or more of an integration type of an issue, which, that's the need and that's the desire and the security the staff has, and it becomes more and more part of their instruction. So you have to pay attention. We will get to some plateau. In our work order system with our facilities management, it's not much different in the amount of tickets we have on a regular basis for facility-related types issues as compared to IT staff. So therefore, there will be some level where, the only way you make a difference on it is to add staff. That, as you know, you've heard that repeatedly over the last couple of years, and we've tried to live with it what we're capable of doing.
And if I could just say one thing, one of the reasons why we asked for this year to get some baseline data is so now going forward we can say, okay, our goal is, what are reasonable goals when it comes to our support for technology, and then it will be incumbent upon the staff to budget then to meet those goals, and then incumbent upon the board to then approve that budget to meet those goals. So it's all kind of intertwined, and thank you so much for coming up with good measures of how you want to run your business, because when we discussed again what measures should we use, the conversation was use what you think you need in order to measure your service and then improve your service. So I think that we've and you may tweak them, but I think we've got a good baseline and a good start toward that.
did note that of the roughly 800 average issues per month, that 100 of them are username and password issues, which feel like human problems and not technology problems.
Correct, but they're all recorded in our system, and that's right, they forget the password, forget the name, forget the login, those kinds of things. It is what it is.
But I mean, you know, you pick an obscure password because these systems force you to pick an obscure password, and then you forget the obscure password because it's not something that you pick up. I mean, yes, I have a document now where I record all my passwords so that anyway.
But many times then that takes a technician to reset the system to create a new PIN. So there is a ticket and it requires a process usually shorter, but it does, and that generates the.
Along the lines of Mr. Paulson, I had one of the questions I raised in my email, whether we could put this data on the dashboard on the website so that we could educate our constituents, our residents, just how we're performing and get some feedback on whether that thing is satisfactory and if not, what the solutions will be and cost allocation should be. I'm confused a little bit here. Passwords aside, when we have equipment going down, don't we have substitute or alternative use equipment that would allow the classroom environment to continue?
Of course, yeah. For a lot of that, for like all the desktops and laptops are new and they're all under warranty, but there still is, someone has to report a fan failure and we have hot spots. So someone has to notify us, that's part of the ticket system, another one is brought out. Also to the point that Mr. Paulson had made about, prioritizing. We do prioritize things now to where, a middle school or high school classroom with equipment down seats 180 students a day. It's a little bit more of a pressure cooker to get that repaired than it is, in an elementary classroom that is only affecting 30 kids a day. So we do prioritize tickets as they come in. Also down to an individual, where it's one person's desk printer is going to be on the bottom of a total pole, because it's not affecting instruction right now. Papers jammed, someone can get to that. That is where we have prioritized so that instruction is our focus. We don't want certain rooms to be out of commission for too long. But for the most part, everything is everything that comes in. When you're talking 6,000 PCs, every day things go, motherboards go. People don't see that a lot in their home use because your machine doesn't take the wear and tear ours do. To be honest, teachers love to pack everything tight. We have a lot of computers that overheat, or how many times you tell them to keep things away, they close the vents, they put stuff too close. They have small areas to work that we have fan failure, motherboard failure, but we have a hot spot there within a day, usually. But someone's got to get there, re-image it, make sure it's appropriate to that room, getting the right printers. It's just all, it's a process. We're not soldering and unscrewing things anymore because everything is under warranty, at least the desktops and laptops.
I guess in response to that, I'd love to see, and again, I don't want to make this a science report, but I guess the more important thing versus ticket length and so on would be how many classroom hours are affected by this, if any, or if it's a shorter term. That to me is the big issue here. And I don't know if that's a doable event or not, and I don't want to create a report that's going to be longer than the necessity. But if we're going to be using something to monitor, I think we better be monitoring the right things.
That's where the qualitative data comes into play, and that's where the survey data comes into play, because customer satisfaction is going to indicate that. That would be very, very difficult to measure and or monitor. And you'd be relying on a lot of opinion from 1,800 employees. So, but again, that's where the qualitative data comes into play, and why we determine the survey and the customer service satisfaction survey, as any business does. And a lot of us fill those out on a daily basis, becomes very important.
I was wondering also, we talked about, running a survey from time to time. I'm wondering if, if you could do a survey at the end of the transaction. Are you anticipating doing that where, okay, we just closed your ticket, tell us how we did?
Our system does do that. We were actually using this first survey that we went out in October to create what questions we're looking for. Again, as we created this baseline data, we were trying to make it so that we can it has to change our practice to make a difference. We know we're short-staffed. I don't need to ask people that. It's what's going to make a change in our practice that's going to be valuable. it also has to be quick. And otherwise, no one's going to want to put in tickets if they know they got to answer 10 questions when they're done. So we're working on that. Stuff works.
I just wanted to say, as delightful as this conversation is and interesting, it's starting to sound a lot like the committee report that went into it. Yeah, and we have a time schedule, so.
Yep, I was just going to try to wrap it up. Thank you, Mrs. Swanson, for wrapping up. Any further questions, any reports from board members? Yep. I'm sorry.
I've got one. I want to plug, you guys may know this, but being a Franklin parent, on the 21st of March, and I promised Mr. Kish and Mr. Bendis I'd make note of this tonight, but on the 21st of March, we're doing our Dodgeball Madness Tournament, second annual. As you most of you know at this table, I'm certain, back in May of 2013, Ross McNeil, a student at Longfellow, lost his fight to cancer, and shortly thereafter the foundation was set up for him. And so I guess Thursday night the 20th is all the students in Franklin, and the 21st is for the parents. And I might add that hard to believe that I'm going to have a team, I know. My wife Nancy and I are partnering up with the Shikani family and forgot the last names. Anyway, it's co-ed, and it's going to be Friday night. So if you guys want to join in and play dodgeball, the second annual Dodgeball Madness, the Hollands. I'm just going to try and not get injured, basically. And our nickname is the Boomers, albeit I'm probably the only boomer in the team, but from an age standpoint. But anyway, great event, raising lots of money for the foundation, and we'll be participating on Friday, the 21st of March.
Thank you, Mr. Giambiani. I probably won't participate, but I will pay to watch.
They'll take your donation. Mr. Kish made me aware of that today, and I am going to plan on being there on that Friday night. I'll be watching Jim from the stand.
All right, we have just a couple of announcements. Our topic, obviously, for future discussion is our technology update, and that will be on April 23rd, the Committee of the Whole. That will be at the School Service Center. Our next regular meeting will be April 9th at 7:30 p.m. at Franklin Middle School. So are there any public comments on non-agenda items? All right, the same rules apply. Do I need to repeat what I said earlier? Okay. Mr. Slates?
My name is Steve Slates, and I'm a teacher in District 200 since 2005. Currently, I serve as a reading specialist in 2 elementary buildings. I'm here tonight to express my concerns about implementation of the Common Core English Language Arts standards, which will take effect this upcoming school year. The New York Times published an article last fall that was entitled "Who's Minding Our Schools?" And in it, the author, Claudia Breitman, states the anxiety that drives criticism of the core comes from the fact that a radical curriculum, one that has the potential to affect more than 50 million children and their parents, was introduced with hardly any public discussion. Americans know more about the events in Benghazi than they do about the Common Core, and I think sadly this this is correct. Most citizens of our country or this district have no idea what the Common Core is, much less its impact on teachers, students, and families. Our legislators never saw the core, neither did teachers. It wasn't voted on in the state, at least by our lawmakers. I don't have time tonight to go into detail, but I can encourage everyone here to look further, especially to review how the New York State Teachers Union just pulled their endorsement from core, and how the Georgia legislature is trying to pass legislation to leave Common Core altogether. That's not the main reason I'm here tonight, though. Although the Common Core is being labeled as simply standards, districts have freedom to make decisions in regards to specific text and curriculum they use. There's already disconcerting reports of what's going on in classrooms within the states that are further ahead in the process as compared to our state. I hope everyone takes the time to read the English Language Arts Common Core appendices. The appendices contain what's called exemplar texts, or samples of texts that are both appropriate and rigorous for each grade level. In words directly from the core, the choices should serve as useful guideposts in helping educators select texts. In other words, they're just examples, they don't have to be used. You can understand why teachers and districts have purchased materials directly from these lists when they know full well tests, including the ACT and now the SAT, will be directly aligned with core in the near future. My main concern is the explicit content in some of these exemplar texts, however. Take The Blue Side by Toni Morrison, for instance, which is on the exemplar list for juniors. CommonSenseMedia.com has this to say on Bluest Eye. Sexual behavior is very complicated in this novel from 1970. Sex acts and feelings between adults are described. More than one grown man behaves inappropriately with young girls. There's also incest, domestic violence, including a sexual assault of an 11-year-old girl. What's a text like this doing in the Common Core appendices? What character traits or values are our students supposed to glean from this story? A second example comes from the 10th grade exemplar text. It's called Dreaming in Cupid by Christina Garcia. The text is read aloud in classrooms throughout California and Arizona until parents complain about its graphic descriptions of the protagonist's sexual exploits, including references to positions and techniques. There have been news reports of schools that have introduced texts like these to students without ever previewing them, under the assumption that they were appropriate for students. I'm assuming that many of us in this community are thinking that could never happen here in Wheaton-Warrenville, which is exactly what I thought until I was shocked and disappointed to hear that a similar text is being piloted currently in one of our high schools. I was recently asked by parents in our community to peruse the junior English syllabus from Wheaton-Warrenville North. Amongst classic texts like Raising the Sun and The Great Gatsby's book, Perks being Wallflower. Anyone who's aware of what's been going on in our surrounding communities should know that this is the book that was heavily debated in Glen Ellyn as to whether or not students should even be able to read it as a free choice. But at our high school, it's not just a free choice, it's in the curriculum. I'll spare you the details, but Perks is graphically explicit. The protagonist is a voyeur in a sense and draws you as the reader in to become a voyeur with him as he witnesses criminal sexual behavior, rape, lewd, and graphic sexual deviance. The treatment of women by young men and both is enraging. Its content makes me, as a father of girls, feel sick to my stomach. Yet it's being used in one of the classrooms here in our district. It's being given to young men, particularly, whose characters are being molded and shaped by discussions surrounding this book with their peers and teachers. As a reading specialist, I really question the choice of such lewd material, even if just portions are supposedly being lifted from the text. There are other pieces of literature that can certainly be used to teach the same ideas or themes that we find in Perks of the Wallflower. The idea of character development at high school level was broached by the administration at the February Engage session. How does one justify the inclusion of Perks when attempting to help students develop their character? How does this fit with our mission of inspiring everyone passion to excel? So what does this have to do with core? Sadly, I think it's an example of how text and material can slip into curriculum without ever being questioned. I think parents in our community assume that what's being assigned in school as reading is appropriate for their children, just like teachers in New York, Arizona, and Missouri assume that the texts in the Common Core appendices are fully appropriate for all students to read in school. My fear is that with the implementation of Common Core, our autonomy as a local district will and it's going to be seriously diminished. You as parents, if there's any left, because teachers, particularly you as board members, will have less and less control over what's being taught in our classrooms. In conclusion, I urge us all to look more at the Common Core, to investigate further what's really driving this new curriculum, because it is the curriculum. In New York, parents and teachers have rallied together calling for a moratorium on the core, for a critical review of texts that were not necessarily chosen by educators at all, nor are appropriate for school reading. Other states as well have called for a slowing down of implementation of standards that no one has had time to really review or test. I urge us to contact our legislators to express our concerns about our diminishing autonomy. They need to hear from us. As board members, I urge you to make the community aware of what's going on. Most people in Wheaton and Warrenville lack knowledge of where the core came from, or why we're even being mandated as a state to follow it. Most parents are trusting that we, as the professionals, are screening texts to ensure their appropriateness for the classroom setting. May we continue to work together to ensure that this district is not only just a place where students are passionate about excelling academically, but also passionate about developing ethical behavior, character, and sense of decency.
Thank you, Mr. Slates. Mr. Longs?
Well, thank you, Rodney, for clarifying the hours, the work hours when you do the tickets. I didn't realize that you're on a 24-hour clock, so it actually makes the length of open tickets much less. You know, it looks like they're all going for 2 days and not 5 days, which is a good improvement. And the other comment that was made about PTA gifts and the support, I know I sit on the board of the Pleasant Hill PTA, and we work very closely with the principal and their needs for the students, and we work with the principal and the and technology group to make sure we purchase the right type of equipment. We just don't go out and say we're just going to buy iPads and donate it to the school and then let them decide what to do or Chromebook. So we work very closely to where the needs are, and along with smart boards and stuff. So we just don't go out and purchase things on our own. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lux. I'm sorry, did somebody want to comment? All right. Okay, we have need for closed session tonight, and the closed session items that are listed for possible action are purchase or lease of real property, collective bargaining, negotiating matters, and personnel. May I have a motion to adjourn to closed session, please?
Before we adjourn, I'd like to just comment on again, the public sessions are very important to me when I listen to these. And I heard a lot of things earlier tonight about the state mandating some ACT issues and PSAT. And if they're the powers that be, and we've heard a comment tonight from someone who's in the Critical area that I'm not as familiar with. And I think I'd love to hear a little bit of a response to that in the future. So, I look forward to that. Thank you.
I think we should all share your sentiment, and I'm sure Dr. Harris intends to address that. Thank you. Okay, so on that note, may I have a motion to adjourn to closed session, please?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Paulson. Mrs. Hutchinson, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Madison?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stockville?
Yes.
Mr. Damiani?
Yes.
Mrs. Watson?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mrs. Interhart?
Yes. I'm sorry, no action will be taken after closed session.
We're going to get a vote here.